What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Anti-Oki Podcast. I am MisterBehavior, and he is Ceelows. What is up, man?
Yeah, man. We're gonna change the direction a little bit today from gaming. Just take a little break from all the gaming crap and just go into, I guess it's just general dating stuff. I guess.
Sort of. I mean, like there's a philosophy out there. We'll get into all this, but there's a philosophy out there that we've kind of like fallen into, and I want to talk to you about your ideas about it and just get some like kind of a perspective, because I feel like there's been a bunch of stuff that's happened over the past week on the internet, not only like to us, but also just like in the general YouTube space, that I think it kind of lends itself to this topic a little bit. And I think it is important for gamers to talk about this too, because I think that this particular issue has sort of led a lot of gamers down the wrong rabbit hole, in my opinion. And that issue is what we're going to talk about is the red pill. But we have a couple of things within that sphere that we also want to talk about. So, for example, what just happened was going on with Fresh and Fit and Abba and Preach. Obviously, we got to talk about that because we haven't had a show since that happened, and everybody's talking about it on the internet. And then there's another YouTuber who's not actually at fault for this, but his Discord.
Yeah.
And that YouTuber is Taylor the Fiend. So we're going to talk about all of that kind of stuff and much more on this episode. Just wanted to say real quick before we get started, I know we didn't have an episode last week. We're taking a break. Fuck you.
You guys don't miss us that much.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be all right. Okay, so this is the first thing I want to get into is I want to get this one out of the way, which is the Abba and Preach versus Fresh and Fit stuff, because I think all of this was kind of like snowball, and we can kind of go into a progression of what we wanted to talk about. So for those of you who don't know, Abba and Preach, who are two YouTubers who they have a channel where they talk about pretty much everything, and they just go into different topics, they react to videos, etc. Got into it with another group of YouTubers called Fresh and Fit. Now, Fresh and Fit have a dating podcast that they put on. I think they go on like 3 times a day or something like that, right?
They actually do like a late night show with like a bunch of girls like 6 times a week. But then they have like other episodes with like guests and like making money and other things unrelated to dating. But.
Right. And they're kind of like sort of central, like the central nucleus of like the online like manosphere red pill community, which we'll go into a little bit. Or they were, until this happened. So there's kind of a long storied history around this, but just to give you guys the long and short of it. So Abba from Abba and Preach went on the Fresh and Fit podcast a couple of months ago. That's actually the first episode of their show that I saw because you sent it to me.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And that's how I got introduced to them, was because Abba went on the show. And which is why I find all of this super hilarious, because so basically Abba went on the show. He went on both shows. He went on their day show to just talk to them, and then he went on the night show with the girls. And on the day show, he was like saying he like asked them straight up, like, why did you call us a blue pill and all these kinds of things. And it was like, it's actually really funny. He basically, Abba confronted Fresh and Fit on like a bunch of things that they had said about them previously and didn't really get satisfactory answers. But one of the things happened was they talked to Preach, who was on a video chat at the time, and they were talking about like paying for sex or something. And Abba's whole thing was that some people like to do it, some people don't like to do it, and like that it's not necessarily a bad thing, whereas Fresh and Fit were kind of taking a hard stance on it. Now, my personal thing on it, I think I kind of lean more towards what Abba was saying, where like it's not for me. I get why people would do it. I don't necessarily think it's a good thing, because personally, I feel like paying for sex kind of enables like thought culture, and I'm like not really like interested in that. But that is what it is. So anyway, Abba and Preach reacted basically to that clip of them debating with Fresh and Fit, and kind of had some moments where they were like saying Fresh and Fit are capping, whatever, because that's what they just generally do, and they were on the show anyway, so they're kind of reacting to themselves, talking to other people. Fresh and Fit didn't like this and went on their day show and basically insulted, I think, insulted Abba and Preach's wife. And I guess previously they had done this also on other episodes too.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah, I think I sent you that video where he was like they showed on another podcast where Fit was talking crap on Abba's wife or Priest's wife.
Yeah.
And like saying that she was probably ugly and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, damn, like that's fucked up. Like
mad disrespectful.
Mad disrespect, right? And so that kind of unfolded. Fresh decides now that he was going to say, which, oh God, he said he decided he was going to say, oh, we should box too and all this stuff. So Preach got, Preach took the challenge. And if you guys saw on the Twitter, I had to make a little meme of it because it reminded me of like the final fight of Marvel vs. Capcom, because
that was good.
Preach was straight up like, I'll take one bitch and then I'll take the other bitch. So like he's fucking onslaughting this bitch. So if you see that on Twitter, retweet that shit because it's fucking hilarious. But that's kind of where we are now. I think Fresh and Fit issued like an apology or something to their fans after, like an apology after all of this stuff happened. And Preach accepted. And then the next day, Fresh posts a video of him like getting a gun or something. So a bunch of things are happening right now. I kind of want to get I just explained it. What do you think about the situation? We can kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, I think so there's another video that I can actually send you after. I might so basically this other YouTuber kind of broke down why people are taking Abba and Preach's side. Right? Like from like a kind of like a law of power kind of. I don't know if you've seen that book, the 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah, I have a copy of it. Yeah,
I need to read that book. There's a video. There's a video kind of breaking it down. Basically, like Fresh and Fit kind of put themselves in they did put themselves in a position where no matter what is the next outcome, Abba and Preach win regardless. Because what Fresh and Fit did was they basically sacrificed integrity to try to boost their reputation.
Right.
And Abba and Preach called them out on it. Like there's one law of power. It's like you want to always like identify your weakness and never seem too perfect. And like Fresh and Fit kind of have always had this aura where like they never really make they never really make mistakes. I know they talk like they used to be kind of like nerdy and since before, but
they still are though, and you can see that.
Yeah, they still are. And even when you notice what on these after hour shows, because some people comment like, sometimes like some of the ladies like challenge some of their opinions. They're just like, nah, you capping. And it's just like, well, what's the point of the conversation if your default response every time a lady has a disagreement with something you're accusing them of or saying is just you're lying. It's just does it really lead to any kind of productive conversation? And it's the whole I guess narrative behind what Fresh and Fit are trying to try to put forward was like Abba and Preach made a video 4 months later for views, and it kind of like shined a light on something that I guess more people should really talk about on YouTube, which is that like when it comes to commentary or reactions or talking about something, there's no rules on YouTube. You can talk about something that happened 2 years ago if you want to. Like even some political commentators I watched, they'll cover events from like 3 years ago and just talk. Sometimes they'll just decide to do that. And that was kind of Abba and Preach's defense. So they were just like, I think they mentioned they kind of just forgot about the first podcast, which I kind of like doubt a little bit. It's like, how do you just forget you just did that podcast? But regardless, like there's no rules to when you have to make a video. I mean, so, like you guys watch this podcast, we cover topics that happened like a week or two prior. Like, there's no rules around it. So like the basis of why they were upset really didn't stand on anything because there's no general like rule. I mean, like you generally want to cover things that are trendy. Abba and Priest don't care about that. They've already established a reputation. They don't have to follow those kinds of rules. So the very basis of what Fresh and Fit have a problem with, I don't think it's really there. I think they just kind of created it because they don't like Abba and Preach. I don't think they really didn't like them to begin with. I mean, even when Abba called Myron Gaines out on calling him blue pilled, it's just like they've already kind of had a notion about them to begin with. And I think like in their heads, Abba and Preach's like reaction, like their video they made kind of like confirm in their heads like, yeah, they're definitely betas, right? And like, and it kind of triggered that reaction that has been kind of brewing for a long time. I think Fresh and Fit never really liked them to begin with. Because I remember Abba actually mentioned in one video that like they kind of begged them to come on for one episode. I wouldn't doubt that, because when you look at, I mean, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but just like how Myron, I don't know if you've seen like that DM where he tried to get some girl to sleep with him to get on the show. Like,
the Anna thing.
They've kind of always had this aura that like they kind of just like people really want to go on their show. I wonder, it's kind of seeming like it's the other way around. They kind of want to get people that they really want on their show, and so their whole integrity is in question. And they did it to themselves. They shot themselves in the foot. And they put themselves in a position where, because they've made themselves the bad guys. Regardless if Preach wins or loses or whatever, people are not going to see these people the same anymore.
Right.
Because they put themselves in that position that we're so perfect. And then Abba and Preach kind of like shined a light on a weakness, and then they took the bait.
Right.
It's also in that video that I talked about, where like it kind of goes into like how they kind of broke a bunch of laws of power rules, and why that their cracks are really showing. So everything Fresh and Fit is getting, I mean, they deserve every bit. Very, very disappointing too, because this was like I wanted these guys to take over Twitch and take over every platform. It's like this stuff needs to be said, and I still think a lot of the content of what they talk about is very true and needs to be said. It just needs to be represented by guys who actually believe the things they say.
Right.
I doubt that they believe the things they say now.
I kind of think that they sort of latched on to this red pill ideology that like Rollo Tomasi and like all of those guys kind of like popularized, and they put themselves in a position where they were the only people in their area kind of like speaking on these kinds of things, and they had a bunch of money to throw behind their show and advertise it and do a bunch of stuff, and they had some clout coming in from like any of their previous adventures, at least a little bit of notoriety, and they kind of use that to ride it. I do agree like that they kind of, so if you back up a little bit and you say like, so what happened after Abba and Preach did that one video where they were talking about how they were capping, Fresh and Fit were capping, they responded by not only disrespecting Preach's wife, but like yelling about like Myron was yelling on air in a video about how he was better. They're better than Abba and Preach and all these kinds of things, when it's like, it was a very strange thing to do, because again, I found out about them through Abba going on their show. You shared that video with me, and I was like, oh, I like Abba and Preach. That's cool. I'll check that out. Like, and then I started watching their content after that. And it's funny though, because you can kind of see if you watch Fresh and Fit, and this is guy Kevin Roy Wilder, who I've been watching a little bit, who talks shit on them all the time. But one of the things that he says, which I think is absolutely true, is something I felt when I first started watching them, is that Fresh is clearly not as intelligent as Myron. And you can see this because like what he does, where he's like, oh, now we should box and all this kind of stuff. Or like that there was another video where he like, I think Myron was trying to get the girls to rate Fresh's Instagram, and they were all like, nah, we don't want to smash or pass. And then he goes, all right, let's do Myron's. And he's like, no, dude, like we're trying to sell an Instagram course, like, and you're trying to like get us blown up right now. So I think that there's a lot of layers to it. I have been seeing a couple of YouTubers have been talking about
a lot of YouTubers.
Yeah. They've been talking about how Fresh and Fit are like not necessarily who they say they are exactly. Like it's, and you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the disappointing part more than anything, because again, like a lot of the stuff that they say, it's kind of like repackaged Rollo Tomasi stuff, which if you guys have never read The Rational Male, I think it's a good book, but we're going to get into later as to like what the problems with that are. And why I think Fresh and Fit actually perpetuate the problems with it, is they kind of package this red pill ideology. Like, okay, so women are kind of like this, and this is what you're expected to do as a man, and blah, blah, blah. But they don't really give anybody any sort of ways to navigate any of those spaces with this knowledge. Yeah. And I think that they do have a little bit of an integrity problem and an integral integrity problem, because what I've seen from them lately is like they're trying to put stuff behind the paywall for like sexual content behind paywalls and stuff, with girls showing their tits and doing all this kind of stuff on Patreon, and like interviewing OnlyFans girls and things. Meanwhile, they're saying that like you shouldn't be like paying girls for attention and all these kinds of things, but you know that they're doing it to get on their podcast. So that all coupled with calling out and yelling at and disrespecting two guys who have been on the platform way longer than you and brought views to your show, it just seemed like a really bad move. And I think we've seen that it's evidenced in like the amount of like subscribers that they've been losing over the past couple of days. They're kind of spitting it off like, oh, there's like negative sentiment, it's fine, like whatever, like, you know, like we'll kind of roll with it. But there's a lot of things that happen within a short span of time that kind of exposed them. And when Abba and Preach were able to explain, you know, how things actually went when he was on the show, you know, all of these kinds of things, and expose this kind of angry side of these people, and kind of stupid side of them, to be frank, it was shown to a wider audience, because there's smaller YouTubers, like I said, Kevin Ray Wilder. There's also this guy John Anthony Lifestyle, who talks about them all the time and like why they're like fraudulent or whatever, but they're way smaller and they're not going to reach as many people. Whereas Abba and Preach doing this kind of really like hit them hard, because Abba and Preach have like millions of subs and like 1.4 million subs or something like that, and they've been around for a minute and people like them, you know what I mean? So I don't know, I think you're right in terms of like they do have a central integrity problem, and it's showing sort of like that it's almost like a front, like they're all like they're playing characters. Like, you guys see us, we're not playing characters. You're getting what you're getting. I said from the very beginning, like, we wanted to talk about fighting games and stuff. I'm not like the best fighting game player. Ceelows is way better than me as Street Fighter. I'm not gonna lie about any of these things or like tell you guys like, oh, I'm like a fucking, I'm the best at any of these video games or whatever it is that we're talking about. I'm not an authority on any of these things. We're just two guys chopping it up, and you're not going to get me pretending otherwise. But I think that these guys, they have this really weird facade that I think is starting to crumble almost.
Yeah, I think what's interesting with like what Abba and Preach is, I mean, this kind of made me gain a lot more respect for their intellect, because Abba and Preach were able to shine a light on something a lot of us didn't see before.
Right.
Because of obviously their subscriber count, but they didn't really like use their channel as a way to like call them out, because they've always made videos like this. I mean, Abba made a really good point on one episode where like he addressed some comments where like, how come you didn't make this? Like, why do you make this months after it's disrespectful? And he's like, none of you guys were saying that whenever I covered anybody else ever. Why is it only when it happens to Fresh and Fit? I think that's really good point. Like, a lot of the criticism people have of Abba and Preach is not consistent, because I followed the concept for about over a year now. They've always done this, whether it was like, I think when that whole Derek Jackson thing started, and there was like a few other like Red Pill guys that they would cover for like a certain period of time, and sometimes they would get responses and they would just respond right back. They've always done this. It's not nothing really different. So I didn't really see a problem, but in fact, I didn't really see the flaws with their original argument in that original podcast until they made that video, and I really liked the video. I remember I posted in I know we'll get to that Discord. So I posted in there, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, Abba and Priest are too feminist for it." I was like, and they were kind of going into like why they don't like Abba and Preach, and I'm like, what does that have to do with the video though? Like what they're saying, like I don't see, like personally, I think they're mostly correct on what they were talking about in that video. It's like they were just calling out how. Like they were just saying, like Fresh and Fit were basically saying they never pay for sex, and it's just like you always do in some way.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Abba and Preach were getting at, and it was really interesting to see like people in like that Red Pill Discord not really care about the content, but more about the people. And it's just like, I see that, and I see what Fresh and Fit doing, and I'm like, it seems like this is a common problem in the Red Pill community in general, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that there's a huge problem with that, kind of like not really taking into account what's being said, but who's saying it more than anything. Yeah. And I think ironically, that's actually the opposite of what you're supposed to do when you're red pilled, right? Because it's like the whole metaphor is seeing the truth. So it shouldn't really matter like who is delivering the truth.
Yeah.
It should really just matter like whether or not what they're saying is correct. Like, look, Abba and Preach, I got a little bit weirded out by them because I didn't like their take on cuties. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
At all.
I didn't like it, and I thought that was dumb, and I would criticize them on that. But I have been following them for a really long time, and what you're saying is I followed them when they were at like less than 100,000 subs or something like that. So I've been following them for years. So I've seen that they have been doing this forever, where basically they just take something, they have a topic or they have a couple of topics. It's kind of similar to what we do in a sense. Like we just talk about whatever we want to talk about. We don't really care whether or not it's like relevant or not.
Yeah.
And so they'll take a thing and they'll talk about it for a couple of videos, or they'll talk about something similar for a couple of videos. They'll have like a theme for a week or whatever, but it doesn't matter if it was yesterday or if it was 3 months ago or whatever. And they've always been doing that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it is weird that as soon as they do that with Fresh and Fit, there's a bunch of people like mad at them. Like, dude, I mean, it's weird because Fresh and Fit have built this like really rabid following of people that will defend them no matter what they do, despite the fact that, like I said, you can see very clearly if you watch some of their stuff, like they do have some weird takes, or they do have some weird moments where it's like, yeah, anytime, you know, one of the females says something, and not to say that they're always wrong, but anytime the female says something that they don't agree with them, it's like, nah, you're capping. Nah, it's like, it's not really a discussion. It's more like they set up a thing, they set up an argument, and then when the woman says something to the contrary, then it's dismissed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good word, dismiss. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, which isn't, I mean, like, I don't really know what the balance is going to be on that. Like, I do think that they kind of set it up where, like, they have the girls drinking a lot, and some of those girls, like, let's be honest, a lot of the girls they have on there are not super intelligent. Some of them they do have that are pretty intelligent. I've seen some girls that, like, can definitely hold their own in arguments with them and stuff like that, or disagreements with them, I should say. But they definitely pick their audience a little bit. And I think that
a lot of people have called them out on that because they're in Miami.
Yeah,
Alvin Priest talked about that, and New York is the same thing. Probably some cities in Cali, LA is probably the same thing.
Right.
Certain cities are gonna have like these the problems that, like, we talk about in dating, extremely highlighted to the highest degree.
Right.
Miami is one of them.
Right.
And so I viewers really have to take that with a grain of salt. It's like, it's not like that everywhere, but if you do live in that city, it's probably more applicable to you. I mean, the thing about the whole Red Pill space is that, like it's like this conflict, because it really like, people who are kind of entering the space and learning about the whole Red Pill stuff, I would think they would like to think for themselves, but it seems like that's not really happening.
No, it's not.
Take the narratives and run with it. It's almost, I mean, I'm convinced it's a human nature thing at this point. People just like to follow, and like, it doesn't matter where it is. And because I really thought this would be one community where it's not like that, and almost every community, like, even even some of the, like, right-wing commentators that I follow, like, they have, like, this kind of, like, sheep following a lot of the time. It's just, like, kind of repeats the same thing over and over. And so it's like, for me, it's kind of a wake-up call. Like, this is actually going to be no matter where you go. But it's kind of like what you said. It's like, they do kind of pick their audience too. And also, like, it's like you said, some girls hold their own, and, like, Fresh and Fit still kind of dismiss some of the things the girls say, but not every. It's interesting because while Fresh and Fit do that, because, like, Fresh and Fit I found through Kevin Samuels, which is interesting.
Okay.
Kevin Samuels does not do that. Kevin Samuels, I think, is like a lot more intellectual than these guys, because when he speaks to these girls, if the girls are being vague with Fresh and Fit, their immediate response is, you're capping though, right?
Yeah.
Kevin Samuels gets to the bottom of it.
Well, he'll repeat his question. Kevin Samuels does this kind of thing, sort of like Jesse Lee Peterson in a way, where, like, if somebody doesn't answer the question, he'll just repeat the question. He'll say, like, that's not what I asked you. XYZ, and he kind of tries to get penetrated.
Like, Fresh and Fit will kind of, like, mock them for, like, being vague. They'll put a little soundbite. Kevin gets it out of them, and he refuses to continue until he gets it.
Right.
And because you see every argument, he breaks it down in very specific numbers, so you can actually, like, you don't have to dismiss it. They've told on themselves because they've already done it. And I really like that about Kevin, and I think that's something that Fresh and Fit could utilize, but they don't.
Yeah.
And maybe more for the entertainment thing, for the stop the cap, and maybe it's kind of that, but it's like, because the thing is, while I do think, like, Fresh and Fit, I actually think they will recover from this, and at some point they will start to grow again. I don't know about the rate anymore. I think some of their integrity could be permanently damaged.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the end of their channel, because they do have a very, like, there's a lot of men who, like, want to follow it regardless of who it is. They just, like, the kind of audience they're catering to are just a lot of, like, desperate guys who want this content. And you'd like to see girls get shat on all the time. So I think as long as they do that, they'll probably have an audience. But the thing is, one of the core components of this whole red pill stuff is integrity. Like, you always want to have integrity especially as a man, and you kind of see these two don't like I question it. I don't know if they really have it. And so if integrity is one of the core components, if not the core component of really just, like, being in your own frame, and you're taking it, and you're taking, while some of the things they say it's truth, but they lack integrity, then if integrity is the most important thing, what's the point?
Yeah, well,
like, sure, it's true, but
it's like, people say this is the blind leading the blind. That's that's really what it is. It's like the blind guy who's being led doesn't know that the person who's leading them is also blind, right? Obviously. But, like, so, like, when it comes to the things about, like, picking their audience and stuff, I think that they pick those girls in particular, especially, like, the OnlyFans girls, which I honestly, excuse me. I've been agreeing with. I agree with I think it's Alex Playing with Fire. He was on Kevin Way Wilder's show, and he was talking about how if he did something where he was interviewing OnlyFans girls, or No Jumper did something like that or whatever, it wouldn't be weird because they're always oh, we're all about porn stars, whatever, blah 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 blah. If when Fresh and Fit do it, it makes no sense because they're preaching to people to do the exact opposite. But what I've been thinking about is, how, I think Booker T. Washington had this quote about race grifters in the 1890s. He said, there's always going to be a certain class of Negro that wants the grievances of the Negro to be in front of the public, because if those grievances go away, they lose their jobs. He was basically talking about race hustlers and stuff, right? And he was talking about this in the 1890s, by the way, which is probably a different show, but I'll say long and short of it is, what the fuck are we complaining about now? But anyway, so he was saying this in the 1890s. I relate that to what Fresh and Fit do with the OnlyFans girls, because they keep these girls in front of these guys who can't get vagina, right? And then they tell them, hey, if you support us, you could see I don't know, them spinning the wheel and showing their titties or some shit like that. You know what I mean? And they keep them in this weird cycle of okay, so you don't want to give them money, but you should give us money instead, and you'll still get to see tits. You know what I'm saying? It almost keeps these guys angry. It keeps them sort of blinded. It's this. Here's what women are really like, guys. So what you need to do is you need to pay us and then just jerk off to them on our Patreon instead of you know what I mean? Instead of going out and paying for them the OnlyFans and empowering them, you should empower us so that we can keep shitting on them, and then the cycle can continue.
You know what's so funny?
In front of us.
You know what's so funny about that? They've admitted to what you just said on one episode. I remember them saying this. They were like, well, because people were asking well, why do you have porn stars on all the time? And it's just well, you guys are gonna do it anyway. You might as well do it here with us.
Oh, yeah.
Literally said this.
Yeah. So
it's
that's
interesting you mentioned this. Where's the integrity? There is none.
Right. That's fucked up. So that's if we were doing this on our show, y'all would be that's weird because you guys have talked against doing that stuff.
Right.
And it's yes, that would be fucking weird. If I was just hey, let's have, I don't know, some random, I don't know, cosplay chick on to titillate you guys. You know what I mean? That would go against what we've been talking about on this show, right? So that's the thing is, it's look, it's I'm not saying that it's bad for people to necessarily promote porn stars if that's what your brand is.
Yeah.
Like I said, if No Jumper did that, doesn't No Jumper dates a porn star or some crap like that? He's totally fine with it.
Yeah.
So if he does that kind of stuff, which on the record, I think that's strange, but whatever. He's
at least he has integrity. Yeah,
right. Because it's what he believes in.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to be mad at him for doing that, because that's the show that if I go into a show and I see a porn star on it, that I'm going to expect that, because that's what he does. He kicks it around porn stars. If I go on Fresh and Fit and you're telling me not to fucking pay attention to these chicks, but then you have them on your show all the time, it's a mixed message. And and then further, just to kind of get, because we're almost getting to the red pill stuff, but I want to know your thoughts on what happened with Fresh buying the gun, posting did you see he posted an IG video of him buying a gun the day after the challenge was accepted? What do you think that was about?
Abba made a video responding to him. He's just what are you doing? Are you serious? Now maybe I give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you just wanted to buy a gun. I don't think it really matters. I think it was a stupid move to do publicly.
Yeah.
Because regardless if you wanted to get the gun all along, or if you're getting it because Preacher's about to come kick your ass, you're going to look stupid regardless. This is kind of what I mentioned before, is no matter what the end result is, Fresh and Fit lose.
Yeah.
Their reputation's tarnished. They really shot themselves in the foot. And Fresh is, and this is why I think you're right about Fresh is not as smart as Myron.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's just what are you doing?
Yeah,
They're continuing to do it. Even sometimes, you when you tune into the episodes in the aftermath, they're getting bombed. The way they're responding to people is just you're basically just they're haters. It is what it is. It's just you guys are not I don't think they don't understand damage control at all. And it kind of seems like they're digging themselves deeper with every post or every episode. It's if you know that you're in because it's not really over. Like Preach is like, I'm coming and we're gonna fight. You guys offered, I accepted, we're gonna do this. Like he's going.
Yo, I can't wait because he's gonna knock him out, man. That dude's big, man.
That dude, yo, man, like it's so. It's why
I'm pretty sure his wife is a fighter too.
His wife is a fighter.
Yeah,
and this is what I was mentioned. This is what you mentioned is right about Fresh not being that smart. His initial thought process: I'm feeling nice. I'm going to the gym. It's just like that's your excuse for wanting to fight someone. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Like, that's actually wild.
Like, here's the thing too. I haven't trained in a couple of years, but I used to do martial arts, and it's like if you actually do martial arts, you're not gonna run around challenging people to fights.
Yeah, because you know you can kill them.
Right. You don't. It's not. That's not something that you do. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fucking fuck you up right now. Blah blah. That like the people who shout about that kind of stuff are typically the people who don't know how to fight. I went on the Pascal show actually a couple of days ago. I just went on and talked to him, and that's one of the things I said was like, the reason why Preach has been quiet, he basically has like just been kind of like looking at the camera and all those videos because he doesn't have to say anything because he knows that he can fight. Like, you know what I'm saying? He's just kind of like, okay, word, you want to fight? Like, I was like, damn, that's crazy. But like, yeah, Fresh posted the video. Oh, I'm in the gym, like not even really lifting anything. Like, I don't really know what's going on with that. That was a little strange. I think Kevin Ray Wilder pointed that out. Was that like he's just kind of like he's not doing the form correct, and also like I don't think
curls.
He's lifting anything.
What do the curls do? Curls do nothing in a fight, dude.
Yeah, like I don't even know. I don't even know.
It's like, and you know the let's fight. Okay, let's fight. No, for 100K. It's just like we all see right through that. No, it's just a barrier they throw because they don't want to actually do it. They have no integrity, and everyone sees through that. You know, it's like, I'm kind of thinking like after I've seen all this, it's kind of like we got to really talk about integrity in the red pill community.
Yeah,
I mean, even though I don't really consider myself like that deep into it, I just like the topic. I think there's a lot of truth in it, but there's not enough importance on integrity.
Right.
Like there's too much importance on idolizing women, whether they hate women or they're all about women.
Right.
Regardless, you're still putting them on a pedestal.
Right.
But it's like, what about our own integrity?
Right.
When you start building on your integrity, the issues with women become less of an issue because you're focused on your integrity of what you believe.
Right.
Like whatever you're set to do, whatever your end goals are, your purpose are, like that stuff takes importance over women. So like, I kind of think the messaging. This is why I really like what the videos that Aber and Preach have made regarding integrity because it's not talked about enough in this space, and it's like. This is a good opportunity to really push that idea. It's like regardless, that needs to be the most important thing, I think.
Right. Well, because the internet, even beyond the red pill stuff, the internet itself is not really the best place to breed any of that because people don't have that on the internet. People want to post things just to get likes. I saw a video the other day, and this is completely unrelated, but I saw a video the other day of someone took a video of somebody on a date, I guess, on a Tinder date or something like that. And he dropped his condom or something. And they did like the, oh no, no. Like that video. And it's like, imagine filming somebody just for the internet clout, like, and to embarrass them.
Yeah.
That you don't know. Like, I can't even fathom that. I don't think I've ever posted a video like that of somebody else. You know, just to like kind of embarrass them in that sense.
Yeah.
I feel like that's so the internet sort of puts people in a place where they feel like that's a good thing to do. You know what I'm saying? Or like, this is what's going to get me views or likes or whatever. And like, sure. Okay. Do your hustle or whatever. But you got to think about the fact that is what you're doing contributing to a more meaningful society or meaningful conversation or whatever. Right. Like, I think that a lot of the stuff that happened here, this is all for shock value. A lot of people are saying like even Fresh and Fit are kind of like, they're not really good representatives of red pill. They're really more good representatives of like they're like modern day Jerry Springer almost, right? It's like kind of what it is. It's like, oh, the Frank Castle moments and stuff. People watch it to see like who's going to get kicked off and all these kinds of things. And it's like the red pill really isn't even about women. It's just about seeing the truth of everything. So like that can mean the truth of like whether or not the government is lying to you, right? The truth of like whether or not, you know, how human nature, intersexual dynamics. Like I discovered it through the Rollo Tomasi and the Rational Male, but the metaphor is apt when it comes to just waking up to the reality of how the world actually functions versus the veil that's been pulled over your eyes. And like I think guys like things like this, when guys like Fresh and Fit are the forefront, or they're what people think of when they think of Red Pill, actually does Red Pill a horrible disservice, because the metaphor is great, and every man, I think, I mean women too, but every man in particular should strive for truth and want to know what actually is going on. But when you have guys like this doing it, they're kind of tainting it, because now people are seeing this stuff and they're like, oh, this is what all these Red Pill guys are about. Like the community itself has become, like you were saying, it's like all about, it's like focusing on women in general, whether or not it's like you're all about them or whether or not you hate them. And that's the reputation that it has now, which is really, really wrong. Like I think that especially guys who are in the gaming space who are interested in this kind of stuff, a lot of the time they end up getting really jaded and upset because they're like, oh, well, chicks just want my money and they want blah, 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 blah. And you know, and they don't love the same way that men do and all this kind of stuff. And they get angry. But the thing is, what they don't understand is that all of this stuff that Myron Gaines is talking about, all this stuff that Rollo Tomasi is talking about, it's a description. It's not a prescription, meaning you're not going to be able to move forward from just knowing this stuff. It's basically you have to take in the knowledge, understand this is how women are, this is how the world is, this is how the government is, all this kind of stuff, and then figure out what to do from there. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of guys go down what Kevin Ray Wilder calls the black pill path, where they start getting upset and they get jaded and they give up. Whereas like what I would consider myself is going down what he would call the white pill path, which is like, okay, I know all of this stuff now. I mean, when I first learned about this stuff, I was already fine with women. I've never had an issue with women. That's not to say that I've never messed up or that like I'm not going to cap like Fresh was capping and say like, oh, every woman who's ever slept with me respects me. That's complete bullshit. I'm sure that there's a ton of women that I've slept with that talk shit on me at least once a year. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure that happens. And I know that happens actually. Yeah. So I'm not going to say that, but I've never had an issue getting women. This stuff just kind of gave me the tools to understand where certain things went wrong, or like what I did poorly in other situations just made me better with it. Whereas a lot of these guys, they never had a chance or whatever. And so once they learn all this stuff, they get black pilled almost immediately and they like get upset. So I think that that's super dangerous.
Flash kicks are right here waiting for you. Wanna get your ass kicked for your plastic. Your kung fu is weak and mine is chic and spastic. Fantastic. You're not a warrior, you're just a beginner. Get up, whip, and bask in the glory of a winner. My strength is much greater than yours. I'm a street fighting legend, the creator of wars. No use debating the score. I've waited patiently for someone to pound through the ground. I'll smash your face in the floor. You're lost, dog. I'm the boss. You can't compare with my powers. I play this game for the fame. They claim the hundreds of hours.
Listen, it's a tournament edition.